What's up, YouTube? It's Lauren here, and I'm here with another video for you guys today. I know I've uploaded a butt ton of videos already, but I need to get a few things done. So, on the list today, or right now at least, is Morpheus Road, the light. We are on Chapter 7. Chapter 6 is where we left off, and we're now on Chapter 7. If you haven't seen the other videos, make sure to check them out. They're awesome. This book is awesome. I love the book. DJ McHale is his name, and he's also the author of Pendragon. Apparently, I just saw that on the cover. A little bit late to the party, I guess. More information on his books, go to djmchaleBooks.com. Let's begin. Woo! Alright, Chapter 7. I was in no shape to go back to work. My house was only a few blocks from school, so I rode straight there. Didn't even call Mr. Santoro to tell him I wouldn't be back. There were too many other things banging around in my head to worry about being responsible. I wanted to be home. Home was safe. Home was sane. I felt sure that as soon as I got there, I'd calm down and start to piece things together. When I got to the house, I locked the door and ran around the entire downstairs, pulling shades and closing blinds. I didn't want anybody looking inside, and I didn't want to be able to look out either. When I thought back to the face that appeared at the kitchen window, it gave me the sweats. It may have been a shopping bag or not. I didn't know, and I wasn't taking any chances. Either way, I didn't want any more faces or bags or whatever peering in at me. I ran up to my room, planning to lock myself in and sit in a corner with a blanket over my head. I had to think. I had to figure this out. I sprinted up the stairs and down the hall to my bedroom. The door was closed. When I pulled it open, any hope of figuring out a sane, logical explanation for what had happened at my school was destroyed. Lying on my bed, fast asleep, was Winston. There was no way for a cat to get in or out of that bedroom. Or the house, for that matter. The cat I saw at school couldn't have been Winston, but it was. It had a Winston's tags. My legs turned to rubber. I sat down on the floor, staring at my contented little kitty. She didn't even budge. Somehow until that moment, I hadn't been able to convince myself that there were logical explanations for everything I had seen and heard. The sounds, the artwork, the road breezes, the symbol, the cell phone, even what I thought was my gravedigger character come to life. I felt certain that with enough reasoning, I could find innocent solutions to everything, except for the cat. That was definitely Winston at the school, but there was no way for her to have gotten out of the house. Seeing her lying on that bed made me realize that whatever the explanation was for what was happening, I wasn't going to like them. So much was happening that defied the rules of the world that I started to wonder if the problem was me. Maybe I was going crazy and imagining things. Why not? Gravedigger existed in my head. Freno might have been right. Might have been obsessed. Wasn't a happy solution, but accepting that everything existed only in my mind was easier to buy than any other explanation I could come up with. Because I couldn't come up with any. What did going crazy mean anyway? Was I going to be committed to some institution and live in a rubber room? If I had suddenly gone out of my mind, why then? Things kind of sucked since mom died, but that was a few years before. Why would I suddenly start getting all nutty now? Was I going to have to lie on a couch and talk to some psychiatrist guy in a beard while he nodded knowingly and took notes? I didn't feel crazy, though I wasn't sure what crazy was supposed to feel like. I really wish Dad was home. I needed to hear a normal, strong voice. I went downstairs and used the kitchen phone to call his cell. After 3 rings, I was afraid I'd get his voicemail. On the 4th, he answered. "Hey, you!" he exclaimed brightly. HTHRU. What? Okay. Oh, how the heck are you? I think that's what it stands for. Hearing his voice was the best thing that had ever happened to me all day. Dad was talking loud because he was on the convention floor. The background noise was a dead giveaway. "I'm okay," I said, lying. Can't start a conversation with, "I'm going out of my mind. How the heck are you?" "This place is nuts," Dad yelled. I wanted to say, "Don't get me started," but decided against it. "Business is great," he continued, sounding genuinely excited. He then called out to somebody. "Can't now, I'm talking to my son." Focused back at me and said, "What's going on? Any problems?" Wanted to say, "Yeah, I'm imagining things and it nearly got me shredded," but couldn't get the words out. Thinking about what I would say and how I would say it made it all seem so silly. As much as I wanted to talk to him and hear him tell me how everything was going to be okay, I couldn't. There's nothing he could do about it anyway. Not from a few thousand miles away. Wanted to get him on the next plane and get home ASAP, as he would put it, but that wouldn't have been fair. Whatever problems I was having, they would have to wait until he finished his trip. It would give me time to come up with a way to tell him I was going crazy without sounding like I was going crazy. No problems, I said. Just wanted to say hi. It's cool. Oh, I'm proud of you, Marsh, Dad yelled into the phone. Sorry I have to be away so much. It's cool, Dad. This way I don't get sick of you. He laughed. Gotta run. Call me later, okay? Yep, I said. Later. Good night, kiddo, he said. And the line went dead. Good night, Dad. I was so incredibly alone, I wondered if any of this would have happened if Dad hadn't gone on the trip. Does your mind hold off on turning wacky until you're at your most vulnerable? I felt something touch my ankle and nearly screamed. As it was, I jumped back and nearly trampled Winston. She had rubbed up against me, probably to ask for dinner. Was that you at school today? I asked the cat. Winston chirped in answer, though I think it was, Shut up and feed me, nut boy. I scooped her litter box and gave her food and water. Didn't have much of an appetite, but put a frozen pizza in the oven anyway. Even lunatics had to eat. While the pizza cooked, I did my best not to look at the window over the sink. A reappearance of Trader Joe would have dropped me off the deep end, so I kept my eyes on the oven. The room started getting dark earlier than normal because a storm was headed in. Made me want to be there even less, so as soon as the pizza was done, I threw it onto a plate and brought it up to my room with a can of Coke. Sat on the floor to eat, but the pizza tasted like nothing. Didn't know what I was supposed to do next. My mind was everywhere and nowhere. I glanced up at the photo of the temple and flashed back to the sight of it covered in blood. That pretty much killed what little appetite I had. I pushed the pizza away and sat there listening for odd sounds. Or for no sounds. It wasn't long before the storm arrived and rain started to fall. It pounded on the roof, filling the room with white, wet noise. It made me nervous. I wanted to be able to hear in case something was out there. Something? What did I think was there? Gravedigger? Kept running the events of the past 24 hours over and over in my mind to try and make sense of it. I must have sat there on the floor staring at nothing for a couple of hours with nothing to show for it but a sore butt. It had grown totally dark. Dark was bad. I went around the house and turned on every light. Dad was going to get a surprise when he saw the electric bill, but I didn't care. Thought about playing a little 360, but figured it would only wind me up. I was better off sleeping. At least when I was asleep, my mind couldn't play tricks on me. Or so I hoped. Before hitting bed, I took a shower. We had a big glass-walled stall that took up most of the bathroom. I liked to run the hot water and let it fill up with steam and pretend I was in a sauna. Didn't matter that it was summer and 80 degrees outside. For some reason, being in a warm cloud was relaxing. Since Dad wasn't around to yell at me for using all the hot water, I took my time. It was great. Being in that steamy enclosure was like being in my own private world. For the first time in a day, I relaxed. Nothing strange had happened since my trip to school. It made me think that whatever I was going through might just be over. Decided to stay there in my safe warm cocoon until the hot water ran out, but that wasn't meant to be. I saw it before I felt it. The steam that filled the shower started to swirl. Small white clouds moved past my face. It made no sense until I felt a faint puff of air. My back stiffened as I instantly went on full alert. Whatever it was had returned. I was suddenly feeling vulnerable, like psycho vulnerable. I was standing butt naked in a shower stall, facing the tiled wall with my back to the glass. Something was out there behind me. There was nothing I could do about it. I didn't move. Where would I go? Several seconds went by. I felt a breath of wind on my wet back and got the shivers. It didn't matter that hot water was rushing down on me. The goosebumps were up. I heard a squeaking sound, like somebody's finger was sliding across wet glass. I knew I had to turn and see. Looking around, I found the only thing that I could use to defend myself. It was a wooden back scrubber brush hanging from the shower knob. I reached out cautiously and clutched it. It was ridiculous. What did I plan on doing? Give somebody a good brushing? Still, it gave me the slight bit of confidence I needed to turn around. I moved slowly, first turning my head to get a look over my shoulder. Wasn't in any hurry to face an intruder naked. My heart thumped. My eyes traveled across the steamed-up glass until they came upon the impossible. It was the symbol, the triple swirl. It was somehow drawn on the glass by wiping away the moisture that had collected there. The sight made me jump. My back hit the tiled wall. Was I imagining this? Was this something my mind had created? In that moment, I actually hoped I was crazy because the idea that some entity was in the bathroom Drawing symbols on the shower glass was far worse. I had to know. I tentatively reached toward the swirls. Though I had to have been a though it had to have been 100 degrees in that shower, my hand was shaking. My fingers touched the glass and wiped through the interconnected circles. It was real, or as my mind was telling me it was real. My fingers slid across the white glass. A realization came to me that nearly made my head explode. The moisture was on the inside of the shower. Something had actually made this symbol. It wasn't out in the bathroom. It was in the shower with me. I cranked off the water, yanked the shower door open, leaped out of the stall, and ran soaking wet out of the bathroom and down the hall into my room. I threw on sweats and flip-flops, not bothering to dry off. Once dressed, I stood there, still wet, not knowing what to do. Should I run, scream, go for the heavy iron again? I grabbed my cell phone, thinking I should call the police. But what would I tell them? And what could they do besides think I was crazy? They would be right. I thought about calling Dad, but he couldn't help. It's on the other side of the country. There was only one other person I could think to call, Cooper. I had no idea what I would tell him, but I knew I wouldn't have to worry about it like I did with Dad. We were best friends. Who cared if we had an argument? Our friendship was stronger than that. I was ready to tell him everything and sound like a lunatic. I didn't care. Maybe he'd come home with his parents. The lake was only a few hours away. I could hold out that long. Yeah, that sounded good. The Foleys would come over, and together we'd all figure this out. Didn't know how we'd do that, but I definitely wanted to try. For sure, I didn't want to be alone. I punched in Cooper's number and got back an automated voice that said, "The number you are trying to reach is temporarily out of service. Please try again later." Quickly hit end and tried again. Maybe I dialed the number wrong. No go. I got the same message. Damn! Cooper's parents must have killed his cell phone as part of his summer exile. Didn't have any other numbers for them. Wanted to scream. My eye caught something on the table near my bed. It was a business card. Ennis Mowgli's card. I had completely forgotten about his odd visit. He was worried about me and wanted to know if anything was wrong. Back then, everything was fine. That had changed. Dramatically, I wondered if what was happening had anything to do with Ennis's concern. Couldn't imagine what kind of connection there might be, or how he could predict that I was about to go off the deep end, but at that moment I didn't care. He said to call if I needed help, and I definitely needed help. Ennis's number had a 212 area code. That was New York City. Said he was leaving for Pakistan and didn't give me a foreign contact number. I had to hope that his calls were being forwarded. What did I have to lose? I punched in his number and waited. There was a series of beeps. Beeps were good. It sounded like I was going to be forwarded to wherever he was. What time was it in Pakistan? I didn't know, and I didn't care. I also didn't know what he could do to help me from so far away, but if there was any connection between his concern for us and what was happening to me, I wanted to know. Was it possible that he had predicted this? Whatever this was? The beeping was replaced by a harsh sound that I had never heard over a phone before. There was static along with some shrill screech. Sorry, guys. There was static along with some shrill shrieks that cut through me like fingernails on a chalkboard. I had to hold the phone away from my ear because it was making my hair stand on end. I was about to hang up and try again when I heard a faint voice through all the noise. "Hello?" I said. I figured it was a bad connection and checked the bars on my phone. My reception was solid. Whatever was wrong was happening on the other end. The voice was still there, but I could barely make it out. "Hello?" I said again. The voice came somewhat clearer. "Make the journey," I thought I heard. It was a man's voice. That much I could make out. Didn't sound like a recording either. "Can you hear me?" I said. "Ennis?" "The source," I heard. The static... Who is this? I demanded to know. The static grew less, but the shrill squeals continued. The man's voice seemed to grow out of them. "Search is over. Journey will begin." What journey? Who is this? Suddenly the static stopped. The squealing stopped. I thought the phone had gone dead. It hadn't. I heard a deep, booming man's voice clearly say, "The journey along the Morpheus Road." I snapped the phone shut. Morpheus Road? It was the word from my dream the night before. A dream. Was it possible I was still dreaming? Was that the answer to what was happening? Was this all a dream? Was I still lying on the couch in my living room missing a TV show about sharks? I heard music. It was so faint I thought it might be coming from next door. Or maybe it was the TV and it would wake me up from this nightmare. It sounded like a music box or something the ice cream guy plays from his truck when he trolls the neighborhood. It was odd, but not threatening in the least. If anything, it was strangely compelling. I walked in a daze to my bedroom door. When I opened it, the music got louder. It was coming from inside the house. As far as I knew, there was nothing we owned that would play music like that. I stood in the doorway listening. It only took a few seconds to recognize the tune. It was a Christmas carol. Santa Claus is coming to town. As strange as it was, the music was soothing. It made me think of holidays when I was little. It reminded me of Mom. I remembered coming out of that same room on so many Christmas mornings, carefully making my way down the stairs in the dark, wondering if Santa Claus had paid a visit and what he might have left under the tree. The music was calling me to the magic. I walked slowly along the upstairs hallway, headed for the stairs. The house was dark. Did I turn out the lights? Didn't matter. It only added to the familiar sensation of a pre-dawn Christmas morning. As I crept down the stairs, the music grew louder. The song played over and over. Again, I had a brief thought that if it was a wind-up music box, it must have been a pretty huge spring to be playing for so long. Looking to the bottom of the stairs, I saw a warm glow of flickering light coming from the living room. I questioned what was happening, but wasn't scared because I was experiencing one of my favorite memories of childhood. I was being swept along in some kind of euphoria. I loved Christmas morning. What could be better? It made me think of hot cocoa and candy canes and parents who would ooh and ah when I opened every gift from Santa as if it was the first time they had seen it. Sure, I was confused. I knew it couldn't be real, but part of me wanted to pretend it was, if only for a little while. As I moved down the stairs, I focused on the mysterious glow of dancing light that came from the living room. I knew what I'd seen when I hit the bottom and turned the corner, and the music continued. Did I have a music box like that when I was a baby? Maybe. It sounded so familiar, so comforting, so inviting. I reached the ground floor and walked the last few steps that would take me to the living room. The anticipation was way greater than anything I'd ever experienced on mornings of Christmas past. I hoped the payoff would be just as good. When I turned the corner to look into the living room, I wasn't disappointed. It was everything I hoped it would be. A fully decorated tree stood in the corner where it always had. It was lit with multicolored lights that created a magical aura in the dark room. Fire crackled in the fireplace where 3 stockings were hung with care, each stuffed with presents. The tree was surrounded by stacks of gifts wrapped in colorful Christmas wrapping. Santa had worked overtime. The tree looked like every other tree we ever had, only better. Glass bulbs of gold, red, blue, and green hung from every branch, reflecting the colored light. A silver garland of beads was draped perfectly from top to bottom. Santa Claus had definitely come to town. Much as I was lost in this perfect dream, I knew that what I was seeing was impossible. It had to be in my head, but at that moment I didn't care. It all looked so real, so perfect. I wanted to touch it, but feared I would break the spell. Still, I couldn't resist. I stepped up to the tree and reached out to one of the golden glass ornaments. I expected my fingers to travel through it as if it were an illusion. They didn't. The glass was solid. Was that possible? Could this be real after all? Maybe it had all been there when I got home and I just hadn't seen it. Then who would have done it? Was it Cooper? Maybe Santa Claus himself. Why not? That made about as much sense as anything else I'd seen. Except that everything had been happening in my head. Feeling the solid ornament made me realize I had to deal with the possibility that it was actually there. I then sensed the music changing. The music box sped up. The song twisted out of tune. I looked to the ornament I was touching to see that it had transformed. Or had it always looked like that? It's no longer a simple round golden ball. Markings appeared on its surface. Strangely familiar markings. It had become the golden orb I smashed against my bedroom wall. I pulled my hand away and looked at my fingers to see they were wet and red. They were covered with blood. My mind couldn't accept it. Was I bleeding? No way, I hadn't cut myself. Yet blood dripped from my fingers. I looked back to the gold wall to see red streaks where my fingers had touched it. Was the ornament bleeding? I took a step back to see that none of the ornaments on the tree were the same. I was looking at a tree that was now loaded with dozens of the strange golden orbs. Backed away, my mind racing to make sense of what I was seeing. No sooner had I stepped back than that bloody ornament fell off the tree on its own, seemingly in slow motion. I watched the blood-streaked golden ball plummet to the floor where it hit a package wrapped with green Santa paper. The glass ball exploded, the same as when it hit the photo on my wall. Blood splattered everywhere, even on me. I felt the warm wetness on my arms. Wanted to turn away and run, but I was mesmerized by the sight. One by one, the other balls began dropping off the tree. Released, fell, and exploded to create multiple bursts of blood. The sticky redness splashed over all of the presents like a holiday slaughterhouse. The music twisted further. Instead of a happy music box, it now sounded like music from a demonic funhouse. The thought flashed, I'm dreaming of a red Christmas. The music grew louder, echoing through our haunted house. I had seen enough, more than enough. I got my head together, turned, and ran for the door. It was a short trip. Standing in my way was a visitor, and it wasn't jolly old Saint Nick. Gravedigger had come to town. The dark figure stood between me and the front door, wielding this silver pick on his shoulder. I managed to squeak out, "Who are you?" He grinned, twisted his head like a curious dog, and spoke. "The journey can now begin," he said in the same deep voice I had heard over the phone. It cut straight through my sanity. He moved toward me, but not by taking steps. He floated. I took a step back, my shoes crunching, tiny bits of wet, broken glass. I was pinned against the tree with branches poking into my back. There was nowhere to go. The gull locked his dead, hollow eyes on mine and reached up with his bony fingers. His face broke into a hideous grin that stretched the width of his skeletal head like a gruesome gash. That did it. I snapped. I reached behind me, grabbed a tree branch, and yanked it forward, pulling the Christmas tree down onto the floor between the gull and me. Jumped to my right, tripping over bloody packages, desperate to get around him. Saw a flash of silver and realized the gull had swung his pick. Whatever he wanted from me, it wasn't to be friends. I grabbed at anything I could get my hands on to throw down between us. A lamp, a straight-back chair, a small table, bloody packages. Anything to stop him. Gravedigger knocked it all away with casual swings of his gleaming pick and kept on coming. I thought I heard him bellow a laugh, but it was hard to tell above the jangling, discordant notes that blasted from the music box from hell. I made a move for the front door, but Gravedigger slipped back quickly, cutting me off. Didn't even turn to look where he was going. He simply floated back and blocked my way. "You will walk with me," Gravedigger growled. "Now and forever." Wasn't going anywhere with this demonic clown. My only option was to escape up the stairs. I half stumbled, half ran up to the second floor. Gravedigger followed, close behind, floating up the staircase without breaking eye contact. He was in no hurry. I wanted to scream, and maybe I would have, but I didn't want to slow down, even for that. I got to the second floor hallway and was about to run back into my room when I realized I would be trapped in there. Instead, I ran down the hall toward my father's bedroom. Glancing back over my shoulder, I saw the dark figure float casually up the stairs, turn, and follow me down the hall. I was going insane. Or maybe I was already there. Either way, I had to fight to keep it together. I jumped into my dad's room and slammed the door behind me. His windows opened up onto the roof of our front porch. That was my plan. Out the window, across the roof, down the wooden porch pillar, across the yard, and straight into the nut house. I ran to the window and tried to pull it open. It didn't budge. A soft knocking came on the bedroom door. It was creepier than if Gravedigger had been wailing on it with his pick. I strained to lift the window, but it was frozen shut, probably from the last time the house had been painted. The soft, polite knock came again. What was he? Why had my mind conjured the specter? Why was he coming after me? I banged on the upper frame of the window, but there was no use. The window wasn't going to open. The doorknob turned. There were no locks in our house. The door swung open to reveal the skeletal image standing in the doorframe. "Prepare yourself," he hissed as he floated toward me. I grabbed a small potted plant from the floor and threw it through the window. It blew out and spread bits of shattered glass everywhere. A second later, I was out on the slanted roof. I half scrambled, half rolled across the broken glass so quickly I didn't realize how close to the edge I was. Before I knew it, I started to go over. I was falling off my own roof. I reached out, desperate to grab onto anything that would slow me down. What I got was the rain gutter. I grabbed it with my right hand, but it was too late to stop me from falling. The gutter bent under my weight and pulled away from the house. I lunged out with my left hand to grab one of the vertical wooden pillars that held up the roof. That's when the gutter gave away. I let go and grabbed the pillar with my other hand, pulling myself to it. I hung there for a second, then slid down to the porch railing. I had made it. I didn't know where to go, but sure as hell didn't want to stay where I was. It was dark. The rain was pouring down hard. I started to run, but spotted my bike at the bottom of the porch stairs. I scooped it up, and with one quick kick I was riding. I bumped along the brick pathway that led to the sidewalk, picking up speed, desperate to be as far away from that place as quickly as possible. I shot out between the two bushes that guarded the path and flew into the road, as a car came speeding along. I hadn't given a thought to traffic. Why would I? Traffic was normal, and at that moment in my life, was anything but. The car's horn blared, made a desperate sharp turn to avoid getting T-boned. The car hit the brakes, but the road was rain-slicked and it kept moving forward. The squeal of locked tires on the wet road sounded like the shrieks that had come through the cell phone. I couldn't stay upright, so I bailed off the bike. The car swerved, barely missing the tumbling bike as it flew past its front grille. "Idiot!" the driver yelled as he sped by. I was lucky to land on the strip of grass between the sidewalk and the curb. I lay on my stomach, face pressed to the ground. Rainwater streamed down my cheeks as I fought the urge to puke. I didn't know if I was hurt. I was afraid to move. I was afraid of a lot of things. As I lay there, trying to calm down, I remembered something that I hadn't thought of in years. We were 10 years old on hot summer days after a decent rainfall. Cooper and I would ride our bikes along a small river that was normally very shallow. After a good rain, the water level went up and made for some decent tubing. There was one spot along the river where a gnarly old tree stretched out over the water. Somebody had tied a thick rope to the branch with a loop at the end. It's perfect for swinging out and dropping into the cool water. Perfect for Cooper, that is. He'd put his foot in the loop, scream like Tarzan, and do a flip at the end of the arc before launching and splashing down. He loved it. I didn't. It scared me. "Come on, Skeever," he taunted. "You gotta at least try." It took me weeks to get up the nerve, but I finally did it. Climbed up the tree and grabbed the rope. "Uh-oh," Cooper called with a laugh. "Check this out. Next stop, Troubletown." Gingerly put my foot into the loop and stood there trying to get up the nerve to jump. I looked at Cooper, and he gave me the double OK sign. That was good enough for me. I pushed off and let go before I swung too high, then plummeted down and hit the water with a perfect cannonball. It was great. In that brief moment, I understood what it was like to be Cooper. Folly, to be fearless. I did it again. And again. Each time I got a little higher and swung out a little farther. It wasn't graceful, but that was okay. I was doing something daring and it was flat out awesome. All fear was gone. I couldn't get enough of it. We took turns, each trying to get higher and outdo the other. Must have been there for about an hour before the final jump. "I'm doing a flip," I boasted. "No way," Coop shouted. "Yeah way," I laughed. "Who are you?" Coop laughed back. "What have you done with Marsh?" "Marsh who?" I exclaimed, and pushed off from the tree harder than I had before. As I swung forward, I shifted my weight to prepare for the flip, and my foot slammed off the rope. I was so surprised I did the absolute wrong thing. I let go. I fell straight down, and when I flipped over, my foot caught in the loop like a snare. My head hit the water, but I was still hanging from the rope by my foot. Gravity had me trapped. My ankle had twisted so violently I was lucky it didn't break. Still, the pain was excruciating, and I couldn't pull myself up. My head dangled in the water. I was going to drown. Cooper dove in from shore and fought the current and the neck-deep water to get to me. With one hand, he held my head out of the water while he freed my foot with the other. He dragged me to shore, coughing and sputtering the whole way. As soon as I hit dry land, I puked. After losing lunch and most of my breakfast, I looked up to see Cooper leaning casually against a tree with his arms folded. "You okay, Ralph?" "Ralph?" I asked. Cooper shrugged. I nodded. "Yeah, okay. Thanks," I said as I spit ick. "Don't thank me," he said. "You know I've always got your back in Troubletown." My nickname was set on that long ago summer day. Wasn't like there was anything I could do about it. Whenever I was under stress, I got nauseous. I couldn't help it. From that day on, I was Ralph. As I lay there in the rain, I knew what I had to do. I had to suck it up and find the guy who always had my back in Troubletown. Alright guys, that's chapter 7 of Morpheus Road to Light by DJ McHale. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe to my channel if you did, and give me your opinion on the book. Peace!